Hello everyone, welcome back to another vid. This time we're talking about Bloodborne again. This is a new headset with a different mic. I personally don't think it sounds that much better, but let me know if it does. Um, Also, if y'all have any recommendations for a good headset with an actually decent mic, let me know, because I'm struggling to find one for PS5. Um, So, for today, we're going to be discussing my Bloodborne adventure so far, aka from the beginning up to Ludwig. And eventually, here, once we really get into things, it is going to jump cut to basically every single boss trophy that I have gotten so far. I have killed pretty much every single boss, including optional bosses, up until up until the one after the one reborn. However, there, we will go ahead and I will do an actual commentary on that for because that's the first boss fight to where I could not commentate at all. The rest of the clips will have no audio for them. Most of the time for Bloodborne bosses, I do have to kind of put a decent amount of focus. Before like the video or whatever. Just let me know in the comments. If y'all want to see an actual Bloodborne playthrough, let me know. Because I'd be willing to do another actual full playthrough. Now, so now I'm going to jump cut to actual conversing about bosses, me. Alright, first up is Cleric Beast. I did mind this boss. I think this boss is a really good first introduction into the bigger bosses that Bloodborne has. Definitely had to do a decent amount of reading. He has a pretty simple moveset. The Saw Cleaver does well against him. I think this is the only boss that I actually used the Saw Cleaver for. After that, every single boss, up until later on, I used the Threaded Cane for. And the Threaded Cane became my favorite weapon. For example, Father Gascoigne. He forces you to use a lot of positioning. I think it's a little difficult for the beginning. Father Gascoigne is the boss that I struggled the most with. This was fucking hard as hell, and I kind of used this cheesy spot to kind of actually kill him. He was pretty difficult. Next up will probably be Bloodstarved Beast. Bloodstarved Beast, I personally am not a huge fan of this boss. I didn't think he was unique enough from the Cleric Beast to really warrant much, besides it forces your use of the antidote, which is what you get throughout the area prior to. Old Yarnum is what it's called. Okay, and it looks like this is the last boss that I used the Saw Cleaver for. Because I think you have to beat him to get the Threaded Cane? You either have to beat him or the Cleric Beast in order to do it. And for the Witch of Hemwick, I ended up running with no insight. Also, I did have to use pretty much all of my insight to upgrade my cane. Which, fun fact, this might be the last boss that I did not use an NPC for. But fun fact, if you have no insight, the Witches of Hemwick are like dummy easy, because the Blight guys don't spawn. I call them the good old Blight hags. Vegar Amelia was she was a unique boss. A lot of people struggled with her. I did not. It was mostly her healing that was annoying as fuck. But this is where I got into using the fire paper, and I do not think I used an NPC for her either, because there was none, from what I remember. Pretty much after this, I do use NPCs for boss fights. I'm using the same logic that I use for Elden Ring. If you put it in the game, I'm going to use it. I will say the NPC made the Shadows of Yarnum a lot easier. Thankfully, it made this fight kind of really need him, because I used the alternate form of the Threaded Cane to kind of bait them into body blocking each other. So, that was kind of a non-bias for me. I do not like most dual bosses. They don't feel like bosses. And for Rom, I did use an NPC for this boss fight, The NPC was utterly useless. The Voracious Spider was one of the easiest bosses for me. I did not do the strat of not killing the other spiders. I killed them first, so that they wouldn't hit me when I was trying to damage, so I could focus on dodge work. And I think I used a bolt paper for him. I found for Rom to be relatively easy compared to everything else. Dark Beast was difficult. Just because I found Dark Beast's hitbox to be weird. I don't know if it's just me, but his hitbox seemed to be really funky. However, he's the first boss that I actually got a visceral against. Funnily enough, and I visceral pretty much what killed him. Since I went with a skill build for a large portion. I got a little cut off there, but I did use an NPC form. And as you can see, for the one reborn, I did use an NPC. Mostly because I don't know how to get up there to the flamethrower people. If I did, I was looking for a stairway to get to them, but it just didn't happen. And I just used an NPC for them. But you know, it was fine. I had to look up there to make sure they didn't respawn or anything like that. Most of the time they do despawn, which was nice. Martyr Logarius. Martyr Logarius was difficult. I beat him on the first try. One Reborn took me about 3. Vicar took about 3, which of Hemwick took about 3. Most of these bosses took about 3 tries, except for Father Gascoigne. Father Gascoigne, it took me like 2 entire weeks to beat him. I ended up having to do a Blood Echo farm or whatever for the werewolves. This is the first time I fought Ludwig the Holy Blade. I will be silent here while his cutscene plays. I love the music, my favorite music, which is why I turned it up. But here's where I will be silent.
Please help us. An unsightly beast. The great terror looms. Weakness is coming. Have mercy. Have mercy upon us.
So this was my, of course as you can tell, this was my first attempt fighting him. Definitely one of my favorite. This NPC you unlock by doing a little side quest thing in the Witch of Hemwick area. But I did not know there were actually other NPCs. But he uses the Whirligig Saw, which is really good for his first phase. Also, he's one of the few NPCs that actually can heal himself up to 5 times, I think. Also, I did have Ludwig's Blade at this point in time. However, my actual Threaded Cane in its trick form, the whip form, does serrated damage, which does more damage for bosses. And at this point in time, I could not use any papers. I figured out later that if your weapon does any type of damage other than physical, you cannot use papers. So similar situation in Elden Ring as well, where you cannot use greases. Also, I will be honest, this fight was probably the hardest. I had to focus the most for him. And I will say, even with the NPC, I had to manage a lot more. And as you can see, I go into the corner here just like I bait him there so I can quickly come around and attack him from behind. But even with the NPC, you have to manage the aggros because you really want that NPC to be alive in his second phase. Otherwise, his second phase is just so unmanageable. And the first thing, I lasted like 6 minutes. The final time was about 4 minutes, I believe. Yeah, it was around 4 minutes, I think. His first phase is not terrible. It's so unpredictable. Especially when he jumps into the air, it's awful. I kept having to back up. The camera was kind of working against me sometimes, but the time I actually beat him, I will definitely not say as much. I did have different armor the second time, because I actually beat that winter skeleton guy. I beat him before fighting Ludwig again. It took me like 4 attempts to beat Ludwig, which is the second most other than Gascoigne. But also, I was definitely a much better player at this point. I was much better about dodging. I knew most of his movesets at this point, and it was so much a better player. Okay, we'll be signing up for the next cutscene, even though this will happen again.
You were at my side all along. My true mentor, my guiding moonlight.
Okay, and obviously for the playthrough that I beat him, there will be no kind of background audio or anything like that. We'll talk about a couple of things after the boss fight is finished, but you'll be able to see that I will die at some point here. But something I will say is that Bloodborne is definitely, if you're planning on picking up this game, you will have to look up guides on where to go next. There is no map, and some of the areas are so confusing to get, or so confusing. It's kind of ridiculous, I'm not gonna lie. Also, this is the only visceral that I ever got on Ludwig. Also, I don't know why, but I can't seem to get viscerals on bosses. I don't know what it is, except for that winter guy, which I pure luck that I was able to stun him. But Ludwig is absolutely devastating. But I definitely do recommend. Keep in mind that I want to see a series on this where I kind of go way more in depth on Bloodborne. Because Ludwig's lore is very interesting and stuff that he says even after you've killed him, and his dialogue depends on what clothes you're wearing. If you're wearing church or hunter. And this is my first playthrough. I was kind of excited, but then I got absolutely demolished. His sword really reminds me of the Elden Beast, so that's why I'm kind of able to read some of those first try. But yeah, I'm really gone in the wrong direction. On here coming up, we'll be coming up on the actual clip that I beat him in. So this is where voiceover me will end, and this is where in-game me will actually beat him. And so I'll catch y'all after the fight.
All along. My guiding moonlight.
voiceover me is back. And as you can see, I was so happy to beat him. I was sweating so hard. And obviously at the end, you'll see the trophy pop up. I'll put the trophy clip in, obviously, at the end. But, of course, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I know this is a very strange video for me to produce. Eventually, I will be posting a vid on my rankings of the D1 raids and talking about day one experiences. But until then, I will catch y'all in the next vid. Don't forget to leave a comment. And thanks for tuning in.